Hey folks, this is your host, the one, the only, the uncompromisingly thrifty gamer 83. Just bringing you my take of the arcade generation. Growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, it seems that the arcade dominance was everywhere to be seen. You had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, in all of its wonderful glory, located even in local shop-and saves, or Hannafoods as they're called nowadays. It was that amazing point in time where arcades dominated. They dominated not only casual gamers, but also hardcore gamers. And then when you had community fairs, or carnivals, you also had the arcade machines being wheeled right in. You had Street Fighter 2, you had Mortal Kombat, you had loads of explosiveness to choose from. It was probably that greatest pinnacle which turned many casual gamers into hardcore gamers. It brought us all together, and we loved it. That was the essence of gaming. That is why we love gaming. That is something that can never be put into words. We cannot put the arcades into words. We cannot take away from the arcades. The arcades were just that piece of pie. When the new arcades rolled out, you had so many games to choose from, and yet, as it is with technology, it was all gone in the blink of an eye. That's right, the arcade generation was just about completely decimated in the blink of an eye. Nowadays, you would be shocked to find a local store which actually still had a arcade attached to it. Not only did you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was still doing significantly well, you also had Mortal Kombat, you had Street Fighter 2. Everything seemed to be going the way of the arcades, the technology, the architecture. But what happened? Where did it all go? From here, really, it is speculative to state. As it is now, the home console generations and markets greatly influenced arcade players. It was that point where you had half the game on the console, really, and the other half at the arcade. So even though you owned a home conversion or port, you still felt that little something was missing. And really, that is where it was filled in by gaming companies like Midway. You had Midway with Mortal Kombat. You had Capcom with Street Fighter. All of these were great games. You had Konami with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. And just like that, it was gone. It died too early. Nowadays, you see tournaments, and really what's missing is that just community-driven atmosphere. It feels like a con artist pulled a long con, and pretty much we were just tread underfoot. We don't really have that community anymore. We don't really have that outreach to say, hey, you love this game? I love that game too. Hey, maybe we can play it together at the arcade. Instead, it's basically, you have broadband? I have broadband too. I love that game. You love that game too? Cool, let's play it together. And that sense of community, that sense of going to a local store, of, say, buying a sandwich and just playing a game with your friends is just gone. Really. You don't have the arcades as much as an impact as they had made. The arcade culture hasn't really died, but it's become a subcultural phenomenon associated largely with tournament fighting games, and that is something which just, it really does hurt that we don't have that community, that we don't say to each other, hey, man, you know something? You like that game, I like that game, you rent that game, and I'll play it with you. Instead, it's largely become the digital age. The digital age has pretty much said, hey, I'm a gift horse, and I have all these games that you used to know and love. Although the hardware might be a little bit inferior and it may run on emulation, I'm still here for you. And that is largely what has happened with arcades. It's what really makes me say, "Arrgh!" You just want that sense of community back. You want that sense of gaming back. You want that sense of shaking someone's hand. You want that sense of asking, hey, what's the latest arcade game that's come in? Unfortunately, you don't have that anymore. Like I said before, you have this digital emulation age, which really can get under my skin, because you don't have that community. What you have is just something that is inferior hardware trying to emulate what you had seen and what you had felt, and emotions, really. They do get the best of you from time to time. But yeah, as you can see in my video, yes, they've gotten the best of me. What really, I think, the significant turning point for arcades was when Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2, Alpha, Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, they all found home portages and releases, and that pretty much signified that, hey, consoles are here to stay. You know that game that you like so much in the arcade? Hey, now it's on a comparable level. Now it's not just inferior hardware. Now it's superior hardware at home, which at times can be better than what you could find in the arcade. And really, that is how it was slated to turn out. As it is, it slowly phased out arcade games at local shops, and it slowly phased out arcade games at, say, family establishments or even bars. It completely phased out Mortal Kombat. It just completely came and said, hey, you know, your console's superior, we're getting inferior, we're getting a little bit long in the tooth, so you know, we're just gonna do not ports, but we're going to make the games for a primary console. That's what happened, really. As someone who knows and loves arcade games, living in Maine, it really was, for me, a chance to see what other gamers were talking about, why they liked Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2, why they would like SNK games. And here I sit now, wondering to myself, 20 years ago, I was 13 years old. 20 years ago, I can still remember getting a handful of quarters and wanting to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. Yes, it was still around 20 years ago. Wow. And you talk about games compared to then and now. I think as a retro gamer and collector, I think what happens is we remember how good things were compared to what we have now. And what we have now can in fact be superior to an arcade machine from 20 years ago, from 15 years ago. And really, that sense of community, that sense of wanting to play with other gamers has really just disappeared. It's evaporated. We had an ocean that we could just swim into for gaming, and now that's dried up. Now, with digital games, that has pretty much come to a screeching halt with the arcade generation. As an arcade gamer, I find it hard just to see where we are going. Like I said before, it feels like someone pulled a long con on us, and we're pretty much just watching it. We're pretty much saying, yeah, those were some explosive times, you know. We had great technology. We had these games that just completely blew our minds as kids. But now as adults, we have superior hardware at home, but it just doesn't feel the same. You don't really smell the fried dough in the air. You can't really taste that sense of a pop that hasn't been watered down. And then on the other hand, you didn't have the food that you would usually have. Now at home, you can't really emulate or replicate the events that you had when you were playing the arcade games. You don't really have that sense of community. Yes, we're a community of gamers. Yes, we're a community of Facebook guys. But really, as a YouTuber who does gaming, I just feel that it's missing something. For me, the best thing about the arcades was I was able to play with my older brother and enjoy some of those games. Enjoy Super Street Fighter 2 and enjoy Mortal Kombat. And when it was ported to the home consoles, I loved playing it with him then too. But it's that sense that something is just missing, that something has been taken. Alright, folks. Rant, rave, love, hate. Click that subscribe button. You're keeping my show on the air. Have a good one.